Airlines don't just land in a country, they are invited. And tonight, we pull on the threads of what happens when that invitation is revoked or never arrives. It starts with a sound most travelers know too well, the loud click of a departure board flipping to the word canceled. Not a storm, not a strike, something more invisible and more powerful. A policy, an order, a downgrade. Somewhere between politics and safety, air routes can disappear in a heartbeat, leaving empty gates, confused crews, and plans that suddenly don't have a runway. There are different ways an airline ends up unable to fly to the United States, and each one tells a different story. One story is airspace closure, when a government says no aircraft from a specific state may enter, full stop. Another story is safety oversight, when a country's aviation regulator fails an international standard, its airlines might be allowed to keep whatever flights they already had, but are blocked from launching anything new, sometimes for years. A third story is a targeted suspension, a formal order that freezes all direct service on security grounds. Then there are sanctions, financial and legal tripwires that make it impossible to sell tickets, lease planes, buy parts, or refuel in a way that touches the US system. The common denominator is that passengers rarely cause this, but they always feel it. Imagine waking up to learn the airspace you planned to cross went from open sky to a closed door. If you work in cargo, the map you built your business on now has a hole torn right through it. If you are a student, a patient, a parent, a touring artist, or a crew member, that hole is personal. Rerouting a life is messier than rerouting a flight plan. And yet there are reasons these switches get flipped. Sometimes it's about isolating a government after an invasion or an attack. Sometimes it's about telling a regulator, fix your house before your carriers come to ours. Sometimes it's about a safety warning so urgent that waiting even a week feels too risky. Safety oversight sounds abstract, but it lives in the details. How a country trains inspectors, certifies mechanics, audits airlines, and enforces rules. When a regulator falls short of international standards, the message is not that every pilot is unsafe or every plane is a hazard. The message is that the system that keeps airplanes honest is not strong enough. The consequence is a kind of freeze. Airlines already flying to the United States might be stuck with the routes they have, no more and no less. Airlines dreaming of launching their first U.S. service find that dream parked at the gate. On paper, this is temporary. In reality, it can drag on long enough to change careers and strategies. Security suspensions land differently. These aren't technical checklists, they're urgent breaks. When a government declares that conditions in a country threaten passengers and crews flying to or from that place, flights stop. Not reduced, not capped, stopped. That decision ripples through homes and offices instantly. Crews who thought they were flying tomorrow suddenly aren't. Family trips become a spreadsheet of refund policies. Cargo that was booked to move this week must find a different continent to pivot through. For some travelers, there's no clever workaround, just a closed door and a long wait. Sanctions are both visible and invisible. You won't see a sanction painted on an airplane, but you will feel it in the way that flight never appears in your search results. Being on the wrong side of a sanctions list doesn't just mean you can't buy an American plane. It can mean your airline cannot legally touch dollar payments, can't work with the companies that handle reservations, can't get insured by firms that operate in the same financial universe as every U.S. bank. In short, the business of aviation becomes mathematically impossible long before a plane's nose points at the Atlantic. Behind every grounded route are small, human recalculations. A family planning medical treatment in a U.S. hospital now has to choose between a marathon of connections or postponing a surgery. A teenager admitted to a university learns that orientation week will be on a screen, not a campus lawn. A manufacturer with just-in-time parts discovers that time has become just in case. Travel agencies become therapists and detectives. Airline call centers become triage, and airports feel the silence. Gates that once pulsed with hello and goodbye become still-life landscapes of unused jet bridges and abandoned stanchions. The politics of these decisions is an argument about risk, duty, and leverage. Close the door, say supporters, and you protect the house. Keep it open, say critics, and you protect the principle that people and ideas should flow even when governments collide. Both sides grab stories to prove their point. One side tells stories of catastrophe averted. a threat that didn't reach your city because a policy kept it far away. The other side tells stories of opportunity strangled, a friendship, a family, a business line that withered while politicians measured postures. The truth is that aviation is both symbol and lifeline. It is the flag on a tail and the arteries of a global body. When you clamp an artery, you better know exactly why and for how long. There is also a quieter reality. Even after the headlines fade, the paperwork lingers. To restore a suspended route, regulators must agree on the conditions for restart. Inspectors must audit. Airlines must reassign airplanes and crews. Airports must dust off gates and renegotiate slots. A route that took years to build cannot be rebooted by a press release. And travelers learn a bittersweet skill: how to live with contingency. Book 2 plans. Keep a suitcase near the door. Read the news not as information, but as infrastructure. If there is a lesson here for anyone with a boarding pass, it's this: always check the status of the rules as carefully as you check the status of your flight. Policies are the weather of aviation. Some storms you can see on radar. Others brew high above the map, where only diplomats and regulators fly. And yet there is a way to make even the hard decisions land softer. When governments move fast, they can still move clearly. When they draw a red line, they can publish a map. When they must say no, they can explain the path back to yes. That doesn't reopen every door, but it stops the hallway from going dark. Tonight we name the pattern, not just the players. Airspace closures, safety downgrades, emergency suspensions, and sanctions are different keys turning in the same lock. They change who shows up at a gate, which stories touch down, which ideas get a visa in a world where ideas still prefer to fly. The question isn't whether a country has the right to be careful. It does. The question is whether it can be careful and competent at the same time, so that when protection is needed, the price isn't paid forever by people who did nothing wrong except believe a ticket was a promise.
And that's all for today's video. These stories remind us how quickly the world can change and how fragile the dream of America can be for millions of people. If you found this video interesting, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next update. I'll be back soon with another shocking story about America's immigration, visas, and bans. Until then, stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next video.